Hey everybody, my name's Sam Vidlac, and for my budget exercise, I decided to focus on the city of Grants Pass, which is located in Oregon. The reason I chose Grants Pass is because it's where I'm originally from, and because of that, I had a lot of interest in basically just finding out more about how their budget is composed and how the city kind of works financially. And so there was a lot of natural curiosity for me being from this area and just kind of wanting to learn more about it. So that's why I chose Grants Pass. So let's get into it. So some of the demographics and information regarding Grants Pass. Grants Pass is located in Southwest Oregon. It's about an hour from the California border, and it's about an hour from the Oregon coast. So it's in pretty close proximity to a couple different locations, and it's not just in the middle of nowhere. It also has a population of about 40,000 people. So it's not a huge city, and it's also not a tiny city. It's also placed along I-5, and this is a really important piece of information. I-5 is an interstate that runs from the Mexico border all along the West Coast states into Canada. What's really important information about this piece of information is that it's located in a place where a lot of people are always passing through to get to other places. So, for example, if you need to go to Portland or Seattle from anywhere in California and you're driving, you're going to go right through Grants Pass. And so because of that, there's a lot of traffic, um, not with cars, just human traffic and people passing through the city because of this. It's also home to Rogue Community College, which has a student enrollment of about 2,800 people. Um, this is important just because it kind of shows, some of what the town is really about and, um, the kind of community it is. It's also home to School District 7, which encompasses 10 schools and over 5,500 students. This is a pretty large school district. And within that, there are also smaller school districts that are located in the outskirts of Grants Pass. So education is a pretty big deal in Southern Oregon, and that's a big emphasis of focus for Grants Pass. It's also located in close proximity to various tourist attractions. Crater Lake is relatively close. The Rogue River runs right through the city, and the Oregon Caves are under an hour away from Grants Pass. So there's a lot of really touristy and fun things to do located near Grants Pass, and because of this, there's a lot of tourists that come to Grants Pass, as well as the fact that I talked about earlier, it being placed along the I-5 corridor. There's a lot of people that come through Grants Pass because of that, and it's really easily accessible. So that's some of the demographics and information regarding the city. Okay, so the Government Finance Association standards, the GFOA, these are standards that are designed to improve the quality and transparency of budgets. These are really important, and they exist to make sure that budgets aren't just accounting tools, but instead communication tools that can help navigate various situations and problems. The GFOA has 6 program criteria. As you can see right here, we have the intro and overview, financial structure, policy, and process, financial summaries, capital and debt, departmental information, and document-wide criteria. So all of these different criterias, they're meant to be applied to a budget, and then you can use these as kind of a measuring stick to see if that budget meets the standard of what it should be. And so, yeah, you can use these to analyze a document and just see really where it's at and if it's a good budget or not. You can really base that a lot on if it meets these standards. So let's get into how that applies to this specific budget. So just you need to know that the importance of this criteria, it means a lot. So it sets the tone for the entire budget. For the intro and overview, we're talking about it. It sets the tone for the entire budget while also providing a setting and context to the budget. It also tells us about the main priorities, challenges, and goals that the city has, and some of the challenges that they might face. Different places see different challenges, and so the intro and overview really should give you a good lay of the land to make sure that you can understand what you're about to get into reading this budget and why they do things the way they do them. So how it applies to this budget specifically, it emphasizes a strategic, community-driven process. That's something that I noticed through analyzing this document. It also shows collaboration between citizens and council and staff. That was really big, and that's a theme that we're going to see show up with this budget a lot. Is that the citizens council and the staff? It's a big deal that they take in information from various different people in the community. Um, it also describes the location, history, and context of the city, and it highlights education in the city. So overall, this criteria is definitely satisfied for this budget, just because it provides a lot of background as well as strategic context that you are about to get into when reading the rest of the budget. So I think that this criteria is definitely met, and they did a good job in this budget by meeting that. So the next of these six criteria is financial structure, policy, and process. The importance of this criteria is that it forms a foundation for how the budget is developed, changed, and organized. It also demonstrates the city's financial policies and their effectiveness. Um, so how does that apply to this specific budget? The budget process is clearly explained in this budget for Grants Pass, as is the legally required annual budget adoption process, which is very important. It also incorporates two-year financial projections to support long-term planning. Examples of financial structure, you can see strategic fund allocation is outlined in the fund structure and the accounting method section, which is also showing us that this is meeting the standard. And then finally, it also explains that some revenue funds are legally restricted for specific reasons, which makes sure that there is a targeted use of financial resources. So overall, this criteria also is satisfied. It's strong and organized details and explanations. They end up showing effective financial structure and policy, which does satisfy this criteria. So financial summaries is the third. We can see that this is important because it provides data to understand the city's financial condition, fund balances, and multi-year plans. Financial summaries is obviously going to be something that needs to be right in a budget, or the budget's going to have a lot of problems if the financial summaries are not in order. So specifically when looking at this budget, we can see that the criteria shown in the budget. So public safety dominates spending with over $30 million allocated, which also reflects the city's top priority. That was pretty big in this. And then I also see that property taxes generate $21.9 million, which serves as a key source of stable funding. And that's another piece of this criteria being shown in the budget. Onto this, we have consistent transparency. That's just really showcased throughout this entire part right here, as financial data is clearly organized in this section of the budget. We can also see that the financial summary includes a multi-year trend analysis to provide financial trends over time. This is really important because it helps with long range planning, and it's very thorough to help with the strategies that'll be taken to ensure future financial stability. And they also implement cautious estimating, and that's emphasized to manage cost responsibly going into the future, so you don't get yourself in a bad situation. Overall, for this specific criteria, we can see consistent transparency as well as conservative financial practices, which does ensure that the budget meets the financial summaries criteria. And overall, they did a really nice job of this in this budget. So then we're on to capital and debt. This is important because it covers capital projects, funding sources, and the city's current debt levels. How does it apply to this budget? Well, we can see that it applies because capital projects are described clearly with definitions and dollar amounts. We also see that the capital project selection process is tied to the council adopted strategic plan, which kind of alludes to what I was saying before, and how the council and the community have a lot of input in this budget and how things are done. Project funding is also based on a priority process that weighs input from the city council. So the same thing is coming up again that we keep talking about with the city council. Debt limits and obligations is clearly explained, as well as bond ratings being explicitly presented, which does add transparency and credibility to this budget. So this criteria is definitely satisfied. Grants Pass fully meets the criteria by proving well-organized and transparent capital and debt information. And because of that, they definitely don't fall short in this area. So department information. The importance of this criteria is that it explains departmental operations goals, resource allocation, and performance metrics. It applies to this budget in the way that it provides clear and precise descriptions for each department, as well as clearly stating departmental objectives and goals. It also includes specific performance measures, such as those for fire rescue department. That was an example that we saw here. And one thing that I thought was pretty interesting was that they had statistics on this specific department that date all the way back to 2011. So they're very thorough in department information and in the way that they keep track of these things. And so I thought that that was definitely showed a lot of organization and was pretty interesting to see. So this, with that being said, we can definitely see the grants pass exceeds the baseline GFOA requirements by presenting detailed and effective departmental information. Finally, we have our document-wide criteria. The importance of this is that it just makes sure that the document is accessible, user-friendly, visually appealing, and that a broad audience can kind of understand and navigate the budget itself. And when we look at this budget, we can see that, you know, in the table of contents, each section of the budget, there's a hyperlink to it with a page number. So if you want the page number, you have the page number listed right there, or you can just click it with your mouse and it takes you right there. So I thought that was really good and organized. It also has a full and simple to understand glossary. And it's included to assist readers. I mean, you can find anything you want in there about this document. So they did a good job with the glossary. And then they use a lot of charts, graphs, and visuals that really help the reader understand data and statistics and finances instead of just writing a bunch of numbers within paragraphs or on a screen. They really give you some visual representation, which I think appeals to people's different learning styles. And so I think they did a really good job of that. There's also a consistent layout for the entire budget. The font remains the same, page numbers or smooth transitions. It looks like it's done very professionally. It doesn't look like this was something that was thrown together and is unorganized. It definitely looks the part, and it maintains a professional and organized appearance overall. So because of that, we can see that the criteria is clearly met. It's highly accessible, it's readable, and it's visually appealing to look at. It's a good looking budget. So really the takeaways from looking at these standards is that the grants pass budget successfully meets all of the GFOA standards. And there's definitely importance and consequences to failing to meet these standards. So we can see here the importance of meeting the standard is it helps administrators everywhere really effectively navigate, understand, and apply the budget. And it ensures the budget serves as a practical and strategic tool for decision making. There's also on the flip side of that, there's some pretty big consequences if you fail to meet these goals as far as the quality of your budget. Failing to meet these standards can lead to administrators' ability to manage resources as well as their planning being severely hurt. And that's definitely not a good thing when you do something, you want to do it to the best of its ability. And that's why this is really important. So the overall takeaway is that administrators have to recognize the importance of creating a professional, high-functioning budget in order to maximize effectiveness and avoid negative outcomes. And that's why the GFOA takeaways can really work as a guideline for people to create good budgets. And it's really easily applicable when you're analyzing a budget to see if it meets these standards. So for this, I actually did 2 interviews here just to get a better understanding of people who work really closely with the budget and grants pass. And the first person I interviewed was JC Rowley, who is the grants pass finance director. And there was a couple really interesting things about this interview is that going into it, I had some preconceived notions that since he's a finance guy, he was going to be talking a lot about the numbers of the budget and things like that. And it really, he talked a little about that, but the most of what he talked about was the importance of organization really. And so he spent a lot of the interview emphasizing the importance of vertical alignment across the entity and really the entire structure, and then how there needs to be a vision for everyone. I gathered that in his opinion, budgeting is less about numbers and more about unity, transparency, trust, and organization, like I said. And that to me, it was a little surprising, but it was also good to see. Um, Communication is crucial in successful budgeting from top to bottom regarding information sharing and making sure everyone is transparent and honest. This is something he touched on a lot and really was just saying that, you know, for you to be successful, everybody has to have a clear line of communication, and people need to be honest with each other. And it doesn't matter if you're the best guy with numbers in the world, if things aren't being vertically aligned and communicated clearly, it doesn't matter because they're going to get messed up anyway. So it's really important that people maintain that integrity. Uh, so he also made a point to emphasize the importance of the community and how this budget is heavily centered on community input and investment, which was that consistent theme we've been talking about. And finally, he also noted that many of the citizens, like basic citizens that aren't directly and intimately involved in the budget, he said that they do struggle to understand the budget process just because it can be complex. I mean, this document is 347 pages long, and for a regular person just looking at that, I think that that can be quite intimidating. And I think that he understands that. And he said, so it is a challenge to make sure that the budget's easily understandable for the average citizen, but it's something that's a point of emphasis and something that he likes to try to work on, is that people can't understand what they're looking at when they do want to access the city budget. So my second interview, I interviewed Rob Pell, and he is a Grants Pass City Council member, and I thought it was good to get an interview with him because of how much they do rely on community feedback here. Um, and so he really highlighted that the strengths and the weaknesses of this budget are kind of intertwined together in a way, and that it's kind of a double-sided coin, and you could say. Um, and what I mean by this is that he said that one of the biggest strengths of the budget is that the budget incorporates community feedback through surveys, interviews, and other various different approaches, and it allows significant council member influence on how the money is spent and how the budget is formed and created. Um, and then on the flip side of this, he says that the weakness is that the heavy reliance on community feedback can sometimes put the integrity of a budget in a very vulnerable position, because it's hard to decipher genuine needs versus groups of people seeking extra funding just because it's been a struggle for them to be able to see, is somebody really in need of some more money, and we should put some of the money that we have towards what they're doing, or are people just trying to take advantage of us because they know we take a lot of community feedback. So that was something he spent a lot of his interview talking about. Um, and he also made a point to tell me that Grants Pass does have some problems with uh, handling unfunded mandates, and it's harder for them to do that in comparison to some bigger cities that may be more affluent. And he gave the example of Lake Oswego, Oregon, which is a big, uh, very affluent city in Oregon, and he just said that it sometimes can be hard because those mandates, those unfunded mandates that come down from the state capital, are they're the same for everybody, and everybody's not the same, and it makes it hard for Grants Pass in a way. So after doing all this research and analyzing this budget, my personal recommendations um, is that this budget does meet the GFOA criteria, but that still means that doesn't mean that there's not areas that could definitely use improving within the budget. And while completing the location criteria guide, there are some shortcomings presented that definitely could be fixed that could help make this budget even better. I noticed a missing summary of budget changes between proposed and adopted versions of the budget. Staffing level details were also absent, as there is no explanation on change in staffing levels. This is tough because it's essential for understanding personnel impacts and how to manage these changes. And then it was also unclear and imprecise department goals, and they weren't quantifiable. It would, for example, the department goal would be like, hey, we need to really do really good in this area, but it wouldn't really give you a quantifiable measurement of what is good. It was left up to opinion, and I think that leaves a lot of gray area for defining success. And then at the end of if you're looking in the past to see if you did a good job or not, to see what you need to change going into the future, it can be hard if you don't have quantifiable ways to measure success. And so I think that that's something that could be more detailed in this budget and help them recognize what they're doing well and then what they're failing at. So overall, I think that this budget's well organized. It's a detailed budget in almost every regard. It implements diverse budgeting methods, which shows their approach to budgeting and how the city utilized different approaches for the best outcomes. I also think that effective capital project explanations are explained, which provide clarity on a lot of different investments the city's involved in. They did a good job of that. And really, all things considered, the city's budget's organized, it's efficient, and it's effective, proving to be a well-constructed budget. Overall, they do meet every GFOA criteria. which is really important. And I think that this is a very professional, it's a very organized budget that does a good job. Um, but I do think that there are some things that they could improve. Um, and with that being said, that's really all I have. And it was a lot to learn about this budget, and it was a lot of interesting things that I was able to learn about it. But that's all I have. So thanks for listening. Bye.